Hello there and welcome again to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back and we are here to review Under Siege. It was wonderful! If you... the jokes are gonna happen here, I'm sure, because we have many jokes to be had about that whole thing. But it was quite the card. There were a few changes to the card, so a few things kind of went out the window because Hammerstone was apparently unable to perform at the show. He was not medically cleared. So, hey, I don't know what's going on with the dude. Hoping for the best for him and a speedy recovery, a speedy clearance. Yeah, it wasn't actually mentioned specifically what the issue was, but it did change a few of the matches and whatnot. But one of the surprise matches, I guess, was Rhino versus VSK. And this was effectively just a, crowd pop squash match for the most part. Nice to see VSK back, even though he's getting squashed here. But, he's got some, I'm going to say pay-per-view time, but, he's getting some time here. On the pre-show to, warm up the crowd and get people who are, a bit on the fence about things to buy in as well. Like, that's the idea of these pre-shows, whatever. But they're also set up for interviews and things like that and whatnot. We're speaking of which... but before that, actually, highlight here of Rhino Goring VSK. Me and Gia Miller was backstage with Ace Austin talking about his X Division title match with Mustafa Ali and promoting that. And Chris Bay apparently isn't here, so he has to go it alone. Then the FBI are in action against the Bacteria. They actually had a much more extended squash match here, I guess, for the most part. And I guess that means these guys are going to stick around at least for a little while or be floating in and out here and there at some points, because you wouldn't give guys like this a win on a pre-show or any event, really, unless you're going to do something with them. So it is what it is. But, it's tough when you've got, again, like literally effectively jobber teams or teams that are put into that jobber role. And from what I heard, like these guys, Bacteria, have been together for like 10 years. Like, dude, wait, what? Again, it's one of those things. It's like, I don't watch any of the indie stuff. So if somebody knows about these guys or whatever, knows much about these guys, yeah, I'd like to know a little bit, but I'm not that interested in some regards. But still, it's nice to see them getting some spotlight, and this is probably their first bigger spotlight from what I know, because again, I haven't heard of them. So, but yeah, the FBI won this match pretty easily. Frankie Kazarian was backstage, caught Steve Macklin just coming into the building, was saying, "Hey, why am I looking for you? I've been looking for you for ages. We've got that tag match coming up soon. Get your ass ready." So sort of trying to tell this little story between them about will they be able to coexist, etc. Laredo Kid versus Casey Navarro. Now, this was a change. He was going to face Rich Swann, but since Hammerstone was not able to compete, they decided to give a match to Casey Navarro, was in the area at the time. And Casey had quite a good back-and-forth match here with Laredo Kid. And, Laredo Kid picked up the win here, but, this was quite a good lucha X Division style match, and I would think that this is the best match on the pre-show. Rhino's match really wasn't much of anything. Like, it was there, and it was a match, and it kind of popped the crowd, and that's nice. Like, again, like, but as far as a match is concerned, it wasn't much of a match. The tag match was okay, I think. That was a fair bit better than the Rhino match. But they had a lot more to kind of work with, I guess. So, but yeah, like, this match was definitely the best out of the pre-show matches, though it didn't really match up to much that was on the main show, but they didn't have a whole lot to work with here, being that there was no real, like, reason for these guys to fight. And there's been no real reason for some of these other guys to fight, but still, it's, it is what it is. When, it's already set up, you kind of can build things from there. Under Siege starts now with Eric Young and Josh Alexander versus Frankie Kazarian and Steve Macklin. This one was real tight. It really had a good story of, Eric Young trying to control his rage at Frankie Kazarian, and a couple of times losing his rage at Frankie Kazarian. I liked that Josh Alexander brought down to the ring a spare headgear for Eric Young, who was working with an ear injury. So I'm glad that he was able to compete here tonight, given that ear injury. And it's good to see that he wasn't like punch drunk per se from that injury, because it can mess with your equilibrium when you get hit in the ear. And Josh got hit in the ear as well in his match, but that was much more of a planned sort of like attack rather than something where he just so happened to get hit in the ear on the edge of a table. Apparently he needed to basically get his whole ear reattached, so he basically almost did a full Mick Foley here with his ear. But they were actually able to reattach it here and whatnot. So good for him. But yeah, this match was quite good. Though I don't know. I don't know. Like Josh getting the pin here, I think feels like, like, again, like you're trying to situate him to be like probably the guy to go after the world title at some point soon. So, yeah. Highlight here of the tag 'em and bag 'em from Steve Macklin, which led into a slingshot from Kazarian. But up next was Ash by Elegance, the personal concierge, came out to introduce her, and he also tried to spread holy water around the ring since she was facing off against Havoc, which I guess, okay. Ash came out with some cloves of garlic all around her to ward off evil spirits. Not an amazing match, really, or whatnot, but it was decent, like, little match that they had here. Havoc showing her power throughout the match, and Ash trying to do all kinds of devious things, and her personal concierge doing all kinds of devious things and whatnot. Rosemary eventually got sick of all the devious actions on the outside, and she took the personal concierge out of the arena, as to give Havoc the upper hand, but it was to no avail, unfortunately, and Ash by Elegance picked up the win here. But, yeah. I do think that this, again, they're trying to finish off, I feel like they're trying to finish off what's going on with Ash and Zaya, probably this next week. Which, again, like, I don't understand why they didn't have this match on pay-per-view, but I don't know, I feel like they should just have it on pay-per-view, like, but then again, it's going to be really tough to do that now. I feel like Ash needs to challenge before, or against all odds, realistically, against Jordan, so I don't really know that, like, she wouldn't be challenging at Slammiversary, and if you're going to keep, like, I really feel like if you're going to keep her in the hunt for the Knockouts title that needs to progress, and you can't really just keep telling the same story of she's floating around and she's watching all the matches of Jordan Grace and blah, 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 all that stuff. You need to actually progress things. You can't really just, keep doing the same thing and whatnot. But whatever. It did answer my question of where was Rosemary and all of this. She was at ringside, but she just wasn't in the graphic to begin with, I guess, or whatever. But still, whatever. Me and Gia Miller had a interview with Speedball Mountain and Broken Matt Hardy. Apparently, I can't speak. About their upcoming match for the main event of Under Siege. Joe Hendry came out to have a match with Zachary Wentz. Joe Hendry, I want to say this, is one of the most over people that is on the roster right now. And I do feel like they need to start priming him for a world title main event picture run. And if you're not listening to that crowd and hearing that they kind of want this guy to be their guy or one of their next guys, then you need to really rethink yourself. But this was a pretty decent match here. Though the graphic has Trey Miguel in the background, and it was promoted as such, Zachary Wentz came out by himself, so I don't quite know what's going on there. Maybe Trey was unable to make the show or something. But I guess this kind of led to Wentz not being able to overcome the odds, not being able to cheat as hard as what he could normally with his partner by his side, his partner in crime. So he did take the pin here. But yeah, it's a nothing match in a sense, but it gives Joe Hendry a win. So, and it helps move him along and move him up and show that, hey, the crowd is really into this guy. They believe in Joe Hendry, so we got to do something with him. But yeah, Spitfire took on Alicia Edwards and Marsha Slamovich. I think that these girls, they put on quite the match. I don't know whether it was quite as good as the opening tag team match, and I guess it's not quite as good as the 6-man tag match that happens later on. But I feel like this was up there though, with the matches and whatnot, despite all the shenanigans that are going on with the cheating and whatnot. Lars Fredriksson on the commentary as well here. So again, if you're a big fan of Lars, actually he sold the match and the story of what's going on pretty well in this one. And I think it was pretty cool to kind of hear someone who actually had some idea of what's going on, not just oh yeah, I'm here and I don't really know. I don't know whether you've got to qualify him as knowing that much about wrestling realistically or whatnot, really strategizing. That's just part of the story or whatnot, but still, it's just one of those things that is kind of interesting and whatnot. But still, I sort of surprised that Slamovich and Alicia Edwards kind of won, but in another sense, I felt like they could win, and I felt like this could be their time, and it could work for the whole system faction and whatnot. I did think that, I felt like these girls would be better off just being, again, I feel like, as said so many times, that the tag team titles, especially the women's tag team titles, are so underrepresented that they'd just be better off, nixing them or whatever. But it is kind of what it is again. So you've got to give people opportunities, and you've got to give the stage of these stories to be told, and we'll have to wait and see where it goes, because you don't even know if Spitfire are going to remain a tag team. It doesn't seem like that interesting to me that they do, but there's only Decay and Marsha and Alicia now, I guess, as tag team wrestlers. So I just don't see them kind of like going anywhere. They've got to have a tag team in this division. So, and new Knockouts World Tag Team Champions, Alicia and Marsha. I guess I kind of want to call these guys a team name, but obviously they're not a team in the traditional sense. This is a partnership or a union of some sort. So, highlight here of Marsha and Alicia picking up the victory. That's how the system works. This is an exclusive that wasn't shown on the actual broadcast. I'm guessing that they're celebrating backstage. And this is Alicia Edwards' first title of any description in TNA Wrestling, and it's her first major title win. So yeah, that's pretty amazing. And she's I think 36, 37. So she's getting one of her first, major titles at a late age. And she's been around for a long time and done a lot of work. And like last year, I think it was that we were talking about her and Trinity, like the fact that she got I don't think it was it a main event? I can't remember, but whatever. She got that big match with Trinity. She didn't win, but she had a very good showing in that match and had some really good heat going in that match and whatnot. I think she deserves this in many ways. Like, she's been around for a long time and done a lot for them. So, hey, give her something, and it helps out with the story overall. So it's not just something for nothing. But yeah. Rich Swann talked about, had a promo backstage of having to fight Jake something instead of having to face his original opponent in Laredo Kid. But basically, same thing for Hammerstone and same thing for Laredo. They had to fight their opponents without, much notice. But due to Hammerstone not being cleared, Rich took on Jake something here. I don't know whether this would have changed due to the fact that it would have been Hammerstone, but it kind of was good for Jake because, again, like, he kind of just lost, so giving him a pretty nice win would have been, would have helped here, but it didn't go that way, and still, but this match devolved into chaos, basically near the end, and AJ Francis was getting involved with Jake something a lot on the outside throughout the whole match, but certainly near the sort of tail end of this match. So Cody Deaner came out just as the referee was effectively calling the match off, and it says here the result is that the match was technically called off, but it technically wasn't. It was still a one-on-one match, and Rich Swann did defeat Jake something at the end of this. It wasn't a tag team match. They didn't make it a tag team match, even though it says that it was a tag team match here. That's not actually how it went down. But yeah. Kushida came out to have his match with Jonathan Gresham, and Gresham came out with his new dark black ink mask, whatever we want to call this different mask. He took the face tentacles off of his mask, and he wrestled with the rest of the mask on throughout this match. In the early stages, he was coughing and whatnot, but that it seemed like he was sick or whatever or whatnot. It didn't really sort of play very much throughout the match. It sort of was only at the beginning of the match and then kind of at the very end. And as I sort of thought, well, Gresham's going to win this because they're trying to build something with him, and they're bringing him back. and that they said, hey, you know, Kushida has beaten Gresham every which way from Sunday. I don't know what it was. I think Kushida was like 3-0 against Gresham. Um, but yeah, this one where Gresham pulled out the victory here, so finally sort of vanquishing the fact that he hadn't really beaten Kushida. So is that actually added to their sort of story there as well, which I didn't know about, like I said. So I said before this that I didn't even know if they'd ever wrestled before. So, like, again, it's nice to sort of have that context, or have someone bring that context in and say, oh, this is how it is, even if that's not perhaps 100% true. I don't know. Again, I'm just going off of what was told to me. But yeah, like, Gresham went for his classic octopus stretch, but he started coughing up the ink, and then he just used the ink as a claw onto Kushida's face to get the pinfall victory. And Kushida was flopping about at the end after this. So interesting to see where this continues to go. It really did show, though, a new side to Gresham. And yes, I think, you know, it is heel stuff that we kind of have seen kind of before, but like, Gresham's just a great wrestler, and like, this was a good wrestling match for the most part, like, apart from like talking about maybe the shenanigans at the end or whatever, but like, it was definitely a good technical match or whatever. But like, good technical matches are great or whatever. Like, any good match that's cool, but you always want more than that. You want a story, you want a reason to be intrigued, and this actually gave you kind of that. Gave you, like, what's going on with this ink, what's going on with Gresham, you know, lots to sort of dive into. PCO and Jordan versus Steph DeLander and Khan. This match was even more chaos. I don't know how much chaos was going on tonight. So much chaos, but this was a fun one, certainly. I don't know that this was the best way, sort of, for this match to kind of go as far as Jordan beating Steph. But then again, like, I guess, like, they want to kind of put a button on that for now. It's tough to see that Khan has again basically lost. In a sense, you could start telling that story again. And it's funny that they mentioned that, you know, how Khan has done so well in the last few months or whatever, but he hasn't had any other matches except for the matches that he's had against PCO, I don't think, except for maybe like one, I think. And he's lost every other match which has been against PCO. So, like, what? He hasn't won a match, basically, except for like something on TV. That was the only match that he won. But he has left PCO laying a couple times, I guess. So, but still, like, yeah. Highlights of the chaos here in the match: PCO choke slamming Steph DeLander here, I think. But yeah, this one was like not so much in the crowd, but like around the ring and whatnot, in terms of like chaos and shenanigans. I did expect like the Good Hands or something to kind of interfere, but nope. Ace Austin versus Mustafa Ali. Wow, what a showcase for Ace Austin, the semi-main event, or one of the semi-main events here, effectively. And like, these guys had a great match, really great. I think like besides like the main event match, like this was probably up there though. Still, like, this was a really good match up there along with the main event. I think like those were like the best like matches, even again discounting shenanigans or whatever. Like, Gresham and Kushida was pretty good, but probably a bit behind this. probably because they were trying to sell so much of Gresham's stuff that they were trying to get him a strong win more than normal, I guess. But this is what young guy I'm going to talk about it more in the upcoming match, but with the system and House Hardy or the whatever. That you need these guys. You need these guys that have a name value sometimes, and we've talked about this a bit here and there. And I've said it about certain other promotions, AEW. But I never see AEW do this sort of thing. I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't watch it or whatever. But this is what you need to do. You need to have your established guy, Mustafa Ali. No matter what you think, even though he never really won titles in WWE or whatever, everyone knows who he kind of is. He was a big star over there. He did a lot of stuff. He was part of Retribution. He did all this stuff. He was supposed to be the SmackDown hacker. He was revealed as the SmackDown hacker, I think, when he joined Retribution, which didn't really go anywhere because they didn't know what to do with him and whatnot. But still, a lot of people know who he is. Ace Austin, yes, a few of us TNA fans and a few other hardcore fans do know who he is, but he's not that big of an international star. TNA has been making a bigger international star and whatnot. But still, him trying to climb this ladder of becoming one of the top guys in the company is really helped by matches against guys like Matt Hardy and or whatever, like Mustafa Ali, etc. So the fact that he lost in this one, I don't feel too bad for him because again he put on such a really great showcase. The match was sort of a very interesting sort of chess match between these two, where Mustafa Ali would go went after Ace Austin's arm, and then maybe he went after his back first or something. I can't remember which way it went now. But then Ace Austin would basically counter that and do the same thing to Ali. But yeah, Ace Austin couldn't overcome all the quote-unquote goons of Ali at ringside, and Ali picked up the win here. But it made Ace look really, really good in this match because, again, he suffered a loss that probably wasn't 100% justified and still the champ, Mustafa Ali. But check out this crazy, tornado DDT from the ring to the outside. Crazy stuff there. This is a highlight that they didn't show on the actual show. Exclusive footage of Mustafa Ali backstage. The Ball of Speeds, Mike Bailey and Trent the Seventh are broken in tonight's 6-man tag team match against alongside their teammate Broken Matt Hardy. They all came out in the different garb of House Hardy to represent the unity in their team. So that was good. The main event was very chaotic and crazy, and had some really great high spots in here. And as it was sort of alluding to before, this is how you use somebody who has a big name. If you have yes, they're going to have Matt Hardy probably have a one-on-one match with Moose at some point, but not only that, you've sort of given Trent Seven and Speedball Mike Bailey something more to work with and something to continue to do. And a main event on a pay-per-view, yes, maybe a B pay-per-view or a C pay-per-view or a D pay-per-view, whatever you want to call it, I don't care, but a pay-per-view nonetheless, and it's still a very big match in a lot of terms. So this is how you use somebody who has a big name, because, hey, they've got a big name, and these young guys, even though Trent Seven's a little bit older, but he hasn't really been to that peak of being one of the top guys in the business, and neither has Mike Bailey. So you're trying to elevate them with this guy who has that kind of pedigree behind him and whatnot. And these young guys, again, can carry most of the match for a veteran like Matt. Yes, Matt did his work absolutely in this match. He pulled his load, but he mostly wasn't in this match. He was in the match pretty much at the end for the most part. He was in at the beginning or the very early stages, but then he was mostly just in it at the end. So that's how you really help these young guys. These young guys get to showcase what they can do with all the eyes on them, because everyone's tuning in to see Broken Matt Hardy and whatnot, realistically, the big name. But then they see these young guys doing all this great work, and, they get over it. This, like I said, was like all over the place and really, really the best, pretty much the best match on the show. Lot of great like little spots in here. The delete chants here right throughout, and whatnot. Once Matt Hardy got the one of the more important tags of the match, to finally come in and square off with Moose and whatnot after the whole match of them not sort of touching, and that's kind of good as well, because again, like if they're going to have a one-on-one match, then it makes it more clear that they definitely are going to have that one-on-one match probably at some point, maybe sooner than what we think, but definitely they're going to have that match. But the system getting the pin here on Speedball Mike Bailey, I think that's good in many ways, because again, it sort of bookends their feud that they've kind of been having with Speedball Mountain to an extent, and helps them kind of move on from that to the next stage of whatever they're going to do. And it's going to be tough for them to actually do anything or have a really great tag teams or whatever to go up against. That's where the Hardy Boys come in, hopefully at some point soon. Like they need that. They need just more teams. But then again, there's the FBI, I guess, but they're just going to get rolled over realistically. But yeah, like the system pulled out the win here, and the Under Siege went off the air with the system holding up all the gold. So just great show, great build to Against All Odds, which is in a couple of weeks' time. So we'll be definitely covering that here on the channel as well as the upcoming TNA Impact, which is next week. So yeah, no, then there's Slammiversary, one of the biggest shows that TNA puts on every year, like along with like Bound for Glory. Like those are the top 2 shows, and then you've got your top 4 shows, and sometimes they do vary in quality and what they actually have on them and whatnot. But still, like they are big shows. They're very heavily promoted and they're very heavily built for the most part. So there's a lot of meat on those bones. There's not as much meat sometimes on the bones here, but they are trying to build these stories to go into those things. So, yeah, that is where we're at right now. And we'll have to wait till next week. We already know some of the matches that are kind of happening. I do expect, like I sort of was saying, that Matt Hardy will go one-on-one with Moose, probably at Against All Odds. I don't see Mike Bailey and Trent Seven really getting another chance at the tag titles, though you could think about doing it. Though, again, I kind of feel like Ace and Bay kind of should have their match for the titles, and then maybe they should split up. I'm not too sure there, but like it's tough to say that they shouldn't get it, because it's tough to just ignore that. And again, they just don't have the number of teams that they really need to sort of keep that going. And you're not going to keep other guys into other positions like that as tag team wrestlers like Josh Alexander or Eric Young. This was just a specialty match. I kind of feel like they should have like some sort of fatal four-way or something like that, or some sort of battle royal of some sort to determine the number one contender at Slammiversary, which realistically should be Josh Alexander, just in my opinion, right now. So that's where I'm at with that. Going into Slammiversary. But as far as like against all odds, if Matt Hardy wants to go up against Moose, that's pretty fine with me. And then if like he's sticking around, which is still a big if, and Brother Nero is coming in, which he might be, who knows, we'll wait and see. I wouldn't mind seeing the Hardy Boys against the team of Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards at Slammiversary. That would be a good little match to have. Like, again, it gives like Matt somebody else to rely on. He doesn't need to do all the work. Same with Hardy. He doesn't need to do all the work in the match. Don't need to carry the match 100%. But, you know, they just need to feed for their own comebacks and whatnot, as baby faces and whatnot. So, yeah. But beyond that, it's going to be really tough unless like you bring somebody else in that would make some amount of sense for Hardy to team with, unless he's just going to leave after losing to Moose, which again could happen, but I don't know. It would be a nice little thing to happen, you know, in there to sort of swan song the Hardys in TNA sort of once and for all and leave on a good mark and whatever else. So, yeah. I'm still hyped. We will have to wait and see what does become of those situations. I know some people are, you know, well, they shouldn't do that, but they need to kind of do that. So it's just one of those things that, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, again, it's really going to help the system to build more momentum and build more credibility and build more dominance in the TNA space, and you know, really help build whoever again sort of comes out on the other side of this dust cloud of the system's dominance. So we will wait to see all of that. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. I hope you guys will join me again in another one. Next one will be, as I said, the upcoming TNA Impact review, so be sure to join me for that one, or if not, at least join me again in another one.